Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Ben. I'm a meditation and spiritual teacher. And in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down 10 things to do immediately to go deeper in meditation. And these are things that I've understood and worked on and implemented in my own life over the last 25 years of practicing meditation. I've worked on lots of these different points with students of mine inside my school as well. So these are things that work and they'll make a big difference. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so point number one is to repeat 21 ohms before you meditate. Now, this might sound a little strange, so let me explain. Prior to you meditating, it's important to do some things to start to gather your attention and basically position yourself in the best way possible to then meditate. If you just jump straight into meditation, sometimes it works, but other times it can be quite difficult to transition from like normal busy daily life or just coming out of sleep and you're in that sleep state still into a concentrated centered mind. So as a way of starting to increase our vibration, different tools and exercises can be really helpful. This one is particularly helpful. So Om is considered a primordial sound. So in many ancient traditions, they consider it like the initial sound of creation. And in terms of vibration, of course, everything is energy vibrating, even this pen, although doesn't seem like it. Om is considered one of the most powerful vibrations in the entire universe. So to repeat Om, either out loud or mentally in your own mind, is very good for uplifting your own vibrations. Repeating Om over and over again can be too powerful for some people. So as a way of using this powerful tool, this vibration, but in a way that is manageable for all levels and use it as a precursor to meditation, it's advisable to repeat it 21 times, then go into the meditation itself. Now you might be wondering why 21? I won't go into real depth on this because we've got other points to get through, but in numerology, 2 plus 1 equals 3, and the numerals 3, 6, and 9 are very, very important. Point number 2, hear, feel, observe. This is an exercise which I like to describe, or illustrate rather, by 3 circles. So what this is also a precursor to meditation. And you start off, you sit down and meditate, or you sit down in your position, and you become just purely aware of sounds. So you start off on this first circle, which is the external circle, and you just become aware of sounds. As soon as you notice a sound, and you're not directing your awareness, you're just keeping it open. As soon as you notice a sound, you mentally label it with one word. So let's say you hear people talking outside, you'd label that perhaps people. Let's say you hear the washing machine, you might label that washing. Let's say you hear something on the television, you label that television. Do that for around 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, you come in then to the second circle. And this second circle symbolizes your body. With this, you start to notice and just observe any feelings or sensations in the body. So we've gone from hear now to feel. And you take the same approach. You become aware of the body, and if you notice an ache, a pain, an itch, a sensation, you label it with one word. So it might literally be itch. It might be that you just are aware of your feet. So you might just use your mind and label it feet. And you do that for around 2 minutes as well. After those 2 minutes, you bring the circle in to a smaller circle, and this is the observe section. Here, all we're now observing is mental activity. So what we've done is we've brought the awareness from external, everything around us, to the physical body, you could say internal, and then we've brought that even closer to home, purely back to the awareness, and we're just now observing and labeling mental activity. So if you see a vision, if you have anything in your mind's eye, or if you notice thoughts or that inner commentary, you will label that commentary again with one word. And what this does is it actually helps you to start to create a separation between thoughts and your ability to observe them. Because so often in meditation, we'll notice that kind of analytic part of our mind and we just go along with that. This exercise helps you to start to create separations between our experiences, our physical, sort of sensual experiences, but also our mental experiences. And you just come all the way back to the awareness, and from that position there, you can then meditate. Point number 3, real easy one, exile your phone. Now, not entirely, but from the room. So wherever you meditate, and for me personally, I'm meditating here. I'm not meditating at the minute, so I do have my phone here. But if I was to meditate, this phone would be out of the room. And any kind of way that you can help yourself to detach from normal life, that's valuable. So being in a separate room is a big thing. I mentioned that a lot. Exiling your phone, getting your phone out of the room. And if you can detach from your phone like an hour before you meditate as a minimum, that's even better. So what does it mean to meditate like it's your wedding day? Well, I often like to liken meditation to getting married. When people get married, they put a lot of energy and effort and focus into their appearance. So on the wedding day, when they get there, they want to be the best version of themselves. You know, they've spent time getting sized up for a suit or a dress, getting makeup done, getting their hair done, making sure they're in good physical shape. People like go in with this real intention of like, I want to be the best possible person on that wedding day. And if we can take that same mentality to meditation, it makes a huge difference. But there's an interesting thing with this. By the end of the wedding day, that same appearance is not there. You know, oftentimes they've lost their jacket, there's a few buttons undone on the shirt, the tie is probably around their head, their knees sliding across the dance floor. The bride's probably wearing trainers now. That initial person that arrived is not the person that's there by the end. And that is actually fine. You want to kind of loosen up and enjoy the event. Meditation is quite similar. I teach meditation in my school in quite a formal way. So I teach a lot of the ancient methods of hand positions, of positioning the body to allow energy to flow. And it's all about like going in with this good mindset. However, as you start to get deeper in meditation, you'll naturally loosen up. Your body will become more relaxed. You might even slump over. That's fine because you're now in the same sense as with the wedding. You loosen up and kind of allow the natural flow to take over. When it comes to meditation, the same applies. So you don't need to be upright and rigid all the way through. You can allow yourself to loosen up. But what I'm really getting at is that the way that you start the meditation sets the scene, it sets the intention, and it's kind of like your reference point of how much you really want it. If you can set your environment up, if you can make sure that you're there and you bring in all of this thought and effort and energy into the practice, you're really considering everything, you're being intentional about everything. You're making sure that you're lighting a candle beforehand, an incense stick. Everything is thought through. You're giving it that prior thought. This is the kind of effort that I'm talking about, and it makes a huge difference. You might think that this is a kind of boring point, but it makes a huge difference. If you are someone that sort of gets up in the morning and you sit upright in your bed and you just meditate there, nothing inherently wrong with that. But if you were to have a little bedside table and perhaps put a cushion on the floor or a chair, get out of bed, have a shower, go over to the little space, light a candle, light whatever, and make it more intentional, make it much more like focused and thoughtful, you often find that the outcome of that meditation is much more positive. Okay, point number 5 is Jyoti meditation. Now, this basically means light meditation, and this isn't a meditation for the entire process, but this is another precursor to meditation. So you can do this in many different ways. Now, this depends on you as a person, but if you're someone that follows a deity, then you can apply this with the image of a deity. If you're someone that isn't a follower of a particular deity and you prefer just to follow perhaps a candle flame or visualize a light, you can do that instead. So what you'd do is sit down before you meditate and light a candle in front of you and just observe that candle. And after a few moments, close your eyes and imagine that candle coming inward, dropping down into this heart space, and you're visualizing this candle flame here. As I say, you can use a light as well, or you could just look at a picture of Krishna or Mother Meera and do the same thing. And you want to allow then the light of this flame or this object or image to expand and expand and expand and start to slowly but surely take up every single cell in your entire body with this loving light. After a certain period of time, a few minutes, allow this light to expand beyond you and take up the room, and then allow it to take up the area that you live in, and then allow it to take up your country, and then the entire planet, and allow basically this light to expand and expand and expand so that it exists within absolutely everything. Now, it sounds like an elaborate kind of bizarre visualization to do, but the beautiful thing about this is it's twofold. Firstly, it starts to gather your attention. So you're starting to take your mind that's been jumping about all over the place, and you're bringing it onto this candle flame. So it's got a centered point to focus on, and you're then directing it inward and absorbing yourself in this gentle visualization. But not only that, it's enabling you to start to see everything and everyone as part of you. It's allowing you to start to comprehend the truth that the same light that exists within me and within you exists within everything, and you're actually living that, you're actually experiencing that through this visualization. You can spend 5 minutes doing this as a precursor to, say, following the breath or repeating a mantra. Okay, lesson number 6 is expectations need burning. Most people in the world who meditate carry unconscious expectations. There's an expectation of a certain outcome, a certain experience, a certain feeling, and those expectations create a lot of suffering when they're not met. Meditation in particular is a practice that is quite unpredictable. Although you are growing, it's not easy to track that growth necessarily until you become a little bit more mature, which you may be by now. So what this practice is about is, at the start of your meditation, before you sit down, write down and sit with yourself and examine deeply, and then write down what your expectations are. There will be some. So if you sort of sit down and think, well, I haven't got any, try to go a little bit further. Try to find an expectation that you feel you've got. Write it down, and then after the practice, you can either throw it in the bin as like a letting go process, or you can burn it if there's somewhere safe to do it. But this is a way of deeply examining hidden or unconscious expectations that most people have and freeing yourself of them. Okay, on to number 7 now. Things are heating up. This is, I'm going to just put SD, strong determination. So a few years ago, I did a Vipassana meditation course, a 10-day course, and they use a word called aditana. I won't write it down because I'll probably spell it wrong. Aditana, and it means strong determination. And basically, they incentivize you, I think it's after day 4 or something like that, for 3 1-hour periods throughout the day to adhere to strong determination. And what they incentivize, first thing, and it sounds really simple, but let me explain, is to keep the body completely still. You start to realize when you are consciously practicing this that in meditation you often just like move more than you think that you would move. Even though you're sitting still, you're not completely still quite often, or you fidget a little bit more than you perhaps should. So putting a focus on being completely still, actually it makes an enormous difference. For me, it made a huge difference. And combined with this mentality of a strong determination to see through whatever time period that you're working on. So this one was an hour. For you, it might be 10 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes. But for that period, be really focused and determined to just continually, not forcefully or aggressively, but just gently coming back to your focal point. Be really conscious, be really intentional about the whole process, and be really intentional about keeping yourself completely still. Okay, so moving on to number 8, and adding a bit of contrast to that point, is what's called inner smile, or I call the inner smile. So much of meditation, and this is going to sound like I'm kind of contradicting my own point here, but so much of meditation can be quite rigid, quite straight, quite like militant, and there's no flexibility there, there's no joy there. If it's all very disciplined and formal, there's a yin yang balance to be found. The discipline from the first point of strong determination is really, really valuable. But also, if you can blend this type of mentality with joy, with an inner smile. So, what I would encourage you to do is, prior to sitting down, or like kind of when you're sitting down, literally consciously smile. Consciously position your body in a upright, positive way. A few deep breaths. Quite honestly, smile and just sit there and think, I get to meditate. I get to spend this time. I get to spend this time with myself and understand myself more. How beautiful, how lucky am I? How fortunate am I? And actually repeat the words, thank you, thank you. So this is more about creating an environment that is joyful. I'd also encourage this with distractions as well. So if your mind drifts off, or if you notice a noise outside, or if something's bugging you, rather than allowing yourself to get frustrated about it, inwardly smile at it and see it as a mechanism for your growth. See it as though it's assisting you to become more patient, more balanced, more harmonious. And this helps to like infuse your practice with this warmth and this joy. Okay, so point number 9 is to look up at the third eye 3 to 5 times throughout your practice. I'm going to explain this one as well. You might have read in the Bhagavad Gita or the autobiography of a yogi or other places that in many lineages they encourage practitioners to look up at the third eye throughout the whole practice. Now that works for some people and it's a great thing to do for some people, but not for everyone. And this is important to remember, that not everyone is different. Not everyone is the same, rather everyone is different. And it's not because you're not quite advanced enough to do it that you might not enjoy this or you might not harmonize with this particular method. It could just be that vibrationally speaking, you're not quite matching up. But one way that you can work with this approach to meditation is to integrate it in sort of small droplets. So let's say you're sitting down and you're following the breath, and say you sit down for like 20-30 minutes. One way that you can work on this is to, your eyes will be closed anyway, is to bring your attention up to the third eye and just bring your gaze so that your eyes are pointing up to the third eye, and hold it for about 1 minute and do it 3 to 5 times throughout the duration of your practice. And after a minute, just bring your eyes back down to normal, just let them relax as normal if that's where they normally sit, and then focus on the breath again. And then let's say in 5 minutes time, 10 minutes time, you bring the attention up again to the third eye, you hold that there, and you just meditate on that point, and then you allow the eyes to relax again. So this is a good way of starting to direct some energy towards the third eye, which is obviously very helpful for spiritual progress, but it's not going to shift things too quickly, and it's not going to cause undue or unnecessary sort of strain if you're just trying to hold your attention there for the entire time. You'll find that it actually, for a lot of you, it may bring about this real deep sense of peace and depth. So by all means, give this a go. It's a really good way of deepening your practice and a really simple, safe way of doing it. Okay, so moving on to the last point now, identity shift. Now, let me explain this one. In so many areas of life, we start to become what we think about a lot, what we actually believe ourselves to be, we start to bring into our existence. I know this is a really big thing within manifestation, and I made a video on this recently where I spoke about how to connect more with the divine, and I spoke about actually imagining that you were someone who was already connected to the divine and actually bringing that reality into your current experience. So if you're going around all day and affirming to yourself and telling yourself that you're not someone that goes deep in meditation, that you struggle to meditate, that you have a really busy mind, then all you're doing is bringing that reality to you. You're not helping yourself in any way. And I know this isn't, we don't necessarily think of meditation like this often, which is why I've mentioned it today. So, number 10 is all about shifting your identity and actually blueprinting your mind as if you were already someone that has a calm mind. So, literally, before you meditate or as you're going to bed at night, place yourself mentally in an experience, visualization experience, where you're a person now that has a completely still, calm mind. You've got complete control over your mind. You feel a deep peace when you meditate. You know, you feel real, amazing sense of connection to something greater. You feel like your mind could not be disturbed by anything. You can calm your mind like that. I'm just kind of reeling off things just off the top of my head now. You can formulate an idea that is accurate and what something that you actually want. But this point is all about spending some time prior to meditating or when you're going to bed, actually blueprinting your mind for what it is that you want. So starting to program the subconscious, influence the subconscious and say, hey, look, I want this outcome. I'm doing meditation. I'm doing these things. Can you start to bring it about quicker? Can you help me with this process? Because the subconscious mind says yes to everything. So if we're saying all day long, oh, I've got a busy mind, I can't meditate, I don't have any experiences, I don't have this, I don't have that, we're just teaching the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind just says yes. Yes, you do have a busy mind. Yes, you can't meditate. Yes, you're struggling to have any type of experiences at the moment. So you're just feeding the exact opposite to what you actually want into the subconscious. So this point is all about reversing that. It's being more conscious about the way that we think of ourselves, what we believe to be true, and what we say to ourselves, and reversing it and making it aligned to what we actually want. So, spending some time before you meditate being in the existence of the person you want to be and imagining that you are that now. So, there you have it, 10 things to do immediately to go deeper in meditation. I'd love to hear your comments, so do let me know below. But failing that, I'll see you on the next video. Thanks a lot.